In this episode of Your Property Podcast, we're talking to YPN member Nigel Luff. Now, Nigel had started out with one particular property strategy in mind. He was going to be doing serviced accommodation, but he was really struggling to get out the gates with this one. And when he actually looked at his geographical location and the resources that he had, he found that doing high-end HMOs was going to be a much, much better strategy for him. So he started working with a number of the YPN Power team and got his first HMO under his belt, a fantastic project which we dive deep into in this episode. So we go deep into the numbers, talk about how he found the deal, how it was financed, how it was refinanced, his tenant type, and how this project was managed throughout and how it's managed as an ongoing property. So if you're interested in HMOs, if you're wondering if this is the right strategy for you, maybe you've been caught up in that shiny penny syndrome of wondering, what should I be doing in property? This is an amazing episode for you. Nigel's a great guy. Once again, I'm sure he won't mind me saying, an ordinary guy achieving extraordinary things in property. It was a pleasure and a privilege to do this interview with him. So sit back and enjoy.
Hey, this is Ant at Your Property Network, and this is my favourite part of the job, where I get to do a deep dive into someone else's property deal and learn from their successes and maybe some of the kind of little mistakes that have made along the way, and some of the challenges and how those are overcome. And so today I'm really, really pleased to be joined by Nigel, who is very much part of the YPN community and reads YPN magazine. I know he's been on quite a lot of webinars of ours as well, to share his deal and I believe the first in this particular type of project for you. So this was your first foray into HMO investing, is that right?
Yes, yeah, completely. Originally, I wanted to go into service accommodation, but as with most people during the property journey, there's been lots of pivots, and found myself in the wonderful world of HMOs.
Okay, it's interesting you talk about that pivot side of things, because I was doing an interview very recently where we were talking about that kind of shiny penny syndrome thing of, we just come in, SA looks great, so does commercial conversions, and HMOs are the thing, and as is deal sourcing, and it's quite difficult to choose a strategy and follow it and focus on it. So talk me through the pivot then. So why the switch from the idea of SA to HMOs?
It was a huge pivot. I had no intention of ever going down the HMO route. We actually lived in Guernsey in the Channel Islands, and we moved back. My parents are from Bakewell in the Peak District, and this is around COVID and lockdown. We had a picture in our mind of an amazing farmhouse with some outbuildings that we can rent out, sort of not living off grid, but the income from that would provide our life. So my wife moved back first with the kids. I was finishing up in Guernsey. Then we moved back, and we joined a wealth academy, which I won't mention. And the process was very good. It was like a year-long process. Learned a lot about it. It was very much a shiny coin. And the reality is I wanted to do it in my local area, and I just couldn't get the deals to stack up. Just basically because the property market, as we all remember during COVID, kind of went from there to there. So there was a lot of and a lot of lessons learned. I thought it'd be. I hadn't anticipated very naively that moving back to the UK I would have 0 credit rating. So it really was you're back, you think you're all right because you've got a little bit of money, but it was really from scratch. And a lot of time chasing sort of the SA dream, highs, lows, disappointments, and then I stumbled across HMOs, which is something that I've always I just thought that's not for me, but actually it made perfect sense for our circumstances.
Okay, so just quickly, what was life like in Guernsey? What were you doing there? And are you still doing that? Or are you kind of moving towards full-time in property? Where are you now?
No, we made a decision that my background sales, and in Guernsey there's a lot of property people for the tax reasons kind of thing. And Guernsey is a very much closed market. It's the property price is similar to London. You have to really be in the trade, have your own building firm to develop, and I just didn't have the resources. So through personal reasons, we wanted to move back to the UK, but with very, very much property in mind. So my wife is the full-time breadwinner, and it's given me time to explore this and to develop it.
Okay, fantastic. So so you've come across HMOs. How did that happen? And was it a case of sort of analysing the local area and saying, actually, the numbers work for this strategy where I am, rather than, you know, trying to make something fit which just isn't going to work because of the property prices and in the area? So was that the sort of catalyst?
Yeah, and it was changing my views as well. It's I realised that investing locally, well, around the Peak District, wasn't going to be for me, particularly within HMOs. I looked at some smaller towns like Chesterfield, Buxton, but they just, you know, it didn't stack up. So then I just, you know, you've just got to broaden your net and find a gold mine area, and then just research the heck out of it. And yeah, I've been weirdly loosely connected to Warrington through my wife's father, who had a business up there. And sometimes the planets align, kind of thing, and it's a great location.
Yeah, okay, but it's interesting, isn't it? I think some kind of connection to a town or a city doesn't need to be necessarily on your doorstep. I live just outside of Bristol. I'm up in the Mendip Hills, very, very rurally, and probably not hugely dissimilar to where you are. I've got quite a lot of property down in Plymouth, you know, 110 miles from me, but I was a billion years ago, I was a student there, and so I kind of know it, and I've got, you know, friends there and stuff, so there's a connection there, even if it's not on my doorstep, I think. So
yeah, and you can get down there if you need to. It's not hundreds of miles, kind of thing. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm not investing in, I don't know, Aberdeen or something where, you know, 12-hour trip away or something like that. So okay, so tell us about this project then. So tell us about the building. What was it? How did you find it? And what was your vision for making this thing, turning this into a, well, let's call it a kind of money-making machine, really, you know?
Yeah, it's I'm a firm believer of everything happens for a reason. So I didn't want to go down a full development route, and a portfolio landlord was selling about 8 properties, and it was through a local agent, and I just couldn't get through the door. They told me it was sold. You'd look a month later, it still wasn't. So then I went to Land Registry and contacted the owner himself and just said, look, I'm knocking on your agent's door. He's telling me it's sold, but it clearly isn't. So hope you don't think this is too formal or anything, but let's have a conversation. So off the back of that, I very quickly got viewings on all 8 of those properties. And whilst I was looking at Warrington, I didn't realise the key areas within Warrington. You know, I was looking at a very broad brush where there's a certain key sort of hub which really, really works. So I looked at all his portfolio, and I was very keen on one in particular. I mean, I wasn't in a situation to buy a portfolio, but he was at the stage where I think he had someone interested in taking the whole lot. That deal fell through, so he was going to sell them individually. And but that day was such a turning point, because I viewed all the properties, and it's an eye opener. People talk about HMOs and different standards, but they weren't a standard that I wanted.
So paint a picture. These were what, sort of tired properties that maybe hadn't had a lot of work done on them in a few years, or?
Yeah, they'd probably been divided up, so I'd say about 10 or 15 years ago, very dated, hadn't had any money spent in them. You go through the door, no one knows, well, there's an element of that with anything, but no one knows who lives next door to them, just generally very, very shabby. And it's nothing I would want to put my name to. So I was still interested in one, but interestingly enough, a residential property came available 2 doors up at the same time, So one thing and another happened. He managed to restructure his portfolio, so he was going to keep it. I think he wanted the money to invest somewhere else. So the one I was looking at came off the market, but then I saw it was pretty much identical 2 doors down. So I thought, right, that's my one.
Operating as an HMO, or
yes,
just a
yes.
standard? Yeah, okay.
It had been at some point, but very, very tired, and maybe 4 tenants. So yeah, it was in a bad state of repair.
Okay, and so what was the vision for this? What are you going to do to it, and how did you? I think there were some kind of people within the YPN community who kind of helped maybe get a vision on that, or can you just talk us through what you? Yeah, talk us through that.
So I think this was around about a couple of Christmases ago, and I read an article in YPN by a guy called Matt Baker, who I don't know if you're ever flicking through a magazine and you know that name for one reason or another. And it took me about 5 minutes or so, but when I was doing the research on the planning portal on Arpley Street, there was one name that kept on sort of popping up. And Matt happened to have a number of properties on that street, so nothing ventured, nothing gained. I think his contact details were on the magazine. I just said, look, this is a bizarre conversation, but I'm thinking about buying a property on the street. I'd like to turn it into sort of an 8-bed HMO. Can we have a conversation? And I think a normal person would just sort of say, well, no. So I wasn't expecting to hear back from him. So, I mean, credit to Matt for actually sort of picking up the phone and having a conversation. So the layout of the house was exactly the same as the one he'd done 5 or 6 years ago. And he owns the one opposite, which is a completely different layout. So I kind of asked Matt, he's a bit of a visionary, and I would have assumed that all HMO landlords are in competition with each other, when actually it's the polar opposite of that. What's good for one is good for the other. It's in terms of end valuations and all that kind of stuff. And I just said, look, would you entertain just being a very, very top level? I don't need to, every couple of weeks, could we have a phone call? If it all hits the fan, can I contact you and and help me out on this? And thankfully he said yes. So yeah, that kind of gives you a little bit more wind in your sail, doesn't it? It gives you a bit more confidence.
Absolutely, just to have someone in the corner who's been there and done it before. So
yeah, the world of HMO developing it's not straightforward. There's so many weird and wonderful. I mean, it's not overly complicated, but to get a straight bit of legislation that you can follow. I mean, planning and the HMO officers have different room sizes. It can be a very confusing world. So yeah, having Matt on board is a massive help.
Okay, brilliant. And let's talk about kind of transforming this building then. So what did you have to do to it to kind of structurally turn it into this 8-bed, and what was the process like in terms of sort of planning or permissions to get what you needed to what you wanted to achieve out of it?
Yeah, well, there was 2 operational floors, and there was a room in the loft, but that was beyond use, and there was a cellar. So to make it 8, would have had to do the cellar and big dormer on the back. So basically, after below ground works, gives me the heebie-jeebies. I sensed that even before I started getting quotes out, and it's the unknown. So I very quickly decided that it would scale back from an 8 to a 7. The most underlying requirement for this project was to get Sui Gen status. I know you can get commercial valuation on a 6-bed en suite, but I wanted to be belt and braces. I wanted to fit into the rules of the valuation perfectly. So very quickly knocked the cellar idea on the head. I mean, that probably would have been 100,000, and it would have only given me an uplift of about 60,000, 70,000. but you'd have a lot of headache, different set of skills, a different team would have been doing it. So, and I mean, I wouldn't particularly want to live in a cellar myself, you know, no matter how well it's done. I just think it's always going to be a complicated process. So we went down the route of a 7-bed, and again, Matt gave me a lot of advice on all this. The issue that I had was how we'd approach the project was to do an extension on the back and the loft conversion through permitted development, and then get a certificate of lawfulness, and then go into the Sui Gen planning process. So technically, you're only going from a 6 to a 7. So the chances of it being refused were very, very slim. Equally, the deal just about, you know, covered its costs as a 6. So I was comfortable with the risk factor, because, you know, it's always trade-offs, isn't it? And working out.
Absolutely. And it sounds like the valuation process on this, achieving a commercial valuation on it as opposed to, you know, a residential bricks and mortar valuation, was key to this deal working. Is that the case?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it always seems to be a trade-off of money now or capital appreciation. I firmly believe that commercial HMOs, you have the best of both worlds, because it's one thing you can rely on. Inflation is going to go up each year. Your rents are going to be higher, but the valuation of that asset is based on your rent. So there will be a continuous uplift over the next 5-10 years, provided the property has longevity and is built well. So yeah, it takes a lot of.
I was going to ask about the. Yeah, so this you know, commercial valuation, achieving the commercial valuation rather than the bricks and mortar, is key to the strategy, really, then, of kind of forcing the appreciation of the asset, and then, if you choose to do so, being able to kind of refinance and recycle some funds later on, I imagine.
Yeah. I mean, it was so key, because essentially the commercial valuation is double the bricks and mortar, but the cost of actually doing the work is a lot. But they're high yielding assets. Where how I approached the planning process actually was sort of like my first stumbling problem. Because I didn't have full planning, we were fortunate enough to be able to buy the property outright. Well, I say that we took a mortgage out on our existing primary property, so we bought the property, and I was hoping to get commercial finance to do the development, but the reality is I didn't have the planning, I didn't have experience, so I took a calculated risk of going down and just doing it on a bridge. So I bridged after purchase. I bridged the property. There was always going to be a shortfall, but I was about 90% sure I could raise that additional funds for the project elsewhere. But that'll be a story further down, I think.
Well, let's talk about what the numbers look like, and then I want to talk about the engineering it to designing it for purpose and for longevity, which you mentioned just now. So, to give us a helicopter number of helicopter view of the numbers. So, what did you buy it for? How much did you have to spend? And then post works with a commercial valuation, what does the value look like then?
Yeah, very, very broad brush. It was just over 200,000 to buy. We were touching maybe about, say, 190 in terms of development fees, everything. So it was somewhere between 380, 390 in terms of the total cost, and the valuation is at 475.
Okay, wow, yeah. And,
so
and as a residential, what would it be worth as a resident, just valued as a residential property, do you think?
I think about 240.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
There's
Massive difference. Yeah.
yeah, but it's in the perfect location for HMO. It's not a perfect residential location, and it's a building that very much lends itself to development. You know, even though I mentioned we have to put an extension and a dormer on, it's not difficult work. Whereas because of the bones of the building, so yeah, we're very lucky where we're located.
And who are your kind of tenants? Are these kind of working professionals? Is it a student area? And how did your tenant type influence the kind of design decisions that you made in the build process and design and build process?
I mean, very naively, everyone kind of mentions young professionals, and when I first started the project, it was young professionals. That's who I'm going for. But actually, speaking to Julian a lot more, the older the tenant, so still professional, the better, because they generally, this is a generalisation, but they look after the property. So yeah, they've all got pretty good jobs, and one guy works at a hospital. I think he's a doctor. He lives in Manchester. Got a bad back. Only wants to be there 5 days a week. So he was my first tenant in the smallest room that I thought I'd never rent out, but it works for him. And yeah, it's the youngest I've got is about 25. So I've got a couple of sort of youngish people, and the eldest is about 45, and we've got, but more weighted towards sort of like the 30s, 40s. Quite a few international. There's a big multinational that works just around the corner, and quite a few of them work there. And obviously, you know, if someone's moving, they say, "Oh, well, why don't you?" You know, even though I haven't got any rooms available at the moment, one of my tenants has said, "Look, this guy would really like to move in." So that's nice to know. It shows that you're doing something right.
Well, I was looking at the photos that you kindly provided, and it was interesting to hear you talk earlier on, saying I was looking at these kind of tired HMOs, and they're not something I would want to put my name to. You know, I wouldn't want to associate myself with that type of building necessarily, that standard of accommodation. Whereas I was looking at the finished product photos, which you kindly sent across, and actually I think anybody would be proud to put their name to those. You know, they look fantastic, and I can see why you attract, you know, a quality tenant who hopefully is going to look after it there. So you mentioned Julian. I think you're talking about Julian Maurice, who you know, we feature a lot in YPN. Was he involved in that kind of look and feel and design for purpose element of it?
Yeah, I mean, Julian has been an absolute legend. We've got a little shrine in the corner of our house, sort of, to Julian. How that came about was after I had the conversation with Matt, I had like a buddy, sort of like someone who I met through the previous Wealth Academy, and we were sort of like, you know, just property buddies, so we can fire off each other and all that kind of stuff. And I think he saw one of Julian's sort of little hour slots or something, and he just said, "You've got to go on the next one," or something like that. And I did, and it just resonated so much with what I was trying to achieve. I didn't know what I wanted to achieve. I mean, basically, I live in a house that's all white. Yeah, you know, every wall is white. It's like
as do I. So yeah,
I have zero talent. I have zero knowledge, and that you kind of know what you want to, where you want to pitch it at, but you have no idea of the thought to the end process. So I mean, his 10 principles of design, it's not just I was worried, I didn't want to speak to a designer because I just thought, oh, this is all going to get seriously fluffy, sort of, who's that guy?
Yeah, it's not about cushions, is it? So, yeah.
Yeah. But his process is so much more about the user experience and the longevity of the project. And that is the key weakness of potentially going down a larger HMO strategy, is you've got to have longevity in the project, it still needs to look good in 10, 15 years' time. You still need to be attracting the top rents. And it's not until it comes on your radar. Initially, at the beginning, you're so bogged down with the numbers and getting the deal and all that kind of stuff. You don't think about, well, I didn't think about the process too much. So, I very quickly signed on to Julian's Monday night. The first he'll probably argue that it still probably doesn't make sense to me, but certainly at sort of 6 months in, I was going, oh, I don't really understand. But he literally held my hand throughout that project. And the only mistakes I've made in it are things that he told me not to. So I can't praise the guy enough. It massively helped me out.
He's a great guy, and for my son's birthday, we were redecorating my teenage son's bedroom for him, and Junior just got on board and helped me with it. So yeah. Kind of sent me links to all these things saying, yeah, you should do this, and it looks amazing. And if I'd been in charge, it would look like a dog's dinner.
Exactly. I mean, I was towards the end of the project, I was messaging him on a Saturday morning at 11 o'clock going, which way do I do the throws? What design do we do on the throws? And God bless him, he picked up he was straight back going, this way, that way. So the guy's just been an absolute legend. And but if you follow the process, it's very logical, and it's longevity, neutral tones. It's almost like a tick box exercise.
And you mentioned about kind of the importance of design and longevity for attracting the kind of premium rents, and I know that's in many ways that's kind of Julian's sort of raison d'etre, isn't it? Not just the aesthetic looks of these things, but actually transforming the kind of financial performance of an asset through the look and feel and the functionality. So were you able to achieve that? Do you feel that actually we're achieving kind of premium rents in our area for the type of stock that we have, the type of street that we're in, and I'd be interested to know what that looks like. What do people pay per room per month for one of your a room in your fantastic house?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I first started looking at it, the market had moved in my favour in terms of rents, but there was very little supply. But there has been more investment in Warrington now, and there's a higher supply than there has been when I initially looked at it. But on the flip side of that, the rates are higher. And I was a bit unlucky when I came to market. I think another 2 projects finished very close to mine. So, the panic was setting in. Julian was just going, hold your nerve. You've got to get the yield. Don't take, make sure you're comfortable, do all the right tenant checks and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, we absolutely smashed the yield on the street. I've got a very, very small room which goes, I think we range from 620 to 780.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I was originally looking at it, I was thinking if I can get 580, an average of 600 a room, I'll be really happy. So, I mean, we've completely knocked it out of the ballpark. And what I think what was more proof in the pudding was out of all the other properties that came on the market, we were tenanted like very, very quickly, way quicker, months quicker than anyone else. So yeah, it was the right product for the right people.
And you self-manage? You kind of you look after the property, or have you passed that on to an agent?
Yeah, it's a difficult one to answer, because when I first went into doing all the numbers, I accounted for an agent. There's a few things during the project that I've had to take compromises. That I've had to lease some of the furniture. So things cost me a little bit more, and there's more outgoing in a short period. So I took the view, under someone's advice, that do it yourself. If you tie up with, I'm sure there's lots of very good agents out there, but if you tie up with an agent, you're tying up for a year. So You're not getting out of that. The numbers stacked up with an agent, but it was too much to not give away. I'd rather be hands-on. I was probably more hands-on with the project than I should have been, but I wanted to. This was very much a proof of concept, and I wanted to learn the ropes. And it's exactly the same with the letting side. And it's, if I could touch some wood, I would. But it's not exactly rocket science, and I think I'm more passionate about the property than some letting agent assistant showing people round. And don't get me wrong, I've had some texts about, oh, I'm not sure about the heating, and sometimes you get a bit frustrated with the day-to-day management of it. But then I just tell myself, is it £9,000 a year worth of aggro? And the answer is no. It never is.
Yeah.
So you've just got to. You could be frustrated about doing it, but you go, I'm saving myself a huge amount of money here. And if I don't have the time, I can give it to an agent that I trust. But at the moment, with all the technology out there, it's never been easier to self-manage. And I do think, speaking to people within the community, is, people at my level do it to keep the costs down. But also, when you do have a big portfolio, you probably do it yourself because you're saving tens, if not hundreds of thousands. So it's, why leave it to chance? Do it yourself.
Yeah, yeah, and or bring someone in who can do it directly for you, and you've created the systems, and so it's interesting. You say this project was the proof of concept. Is this the first of what is going to be a sizable portfolio? Do you have a kind of longer term aim of the property business, or what are you doing? Where are you going next with this?
Yeah, definitely. It was very much a proof of concept. I wouldn't invest in myself 2 years ago, so how could I go and ask someone to invest in me? I wanted to know. My father was a teacher, so there's probably something in the back of my brain that I wanted to know every process of this. Ask my wife. I can't even hang up a picture frame. I can now, but don't tell her. So it was just to really get under the skin of it, and just truly understand it. So I mean, it was Matt that said to me, the great thing about property is you don't have to do it all at once. You could, I could do something tomorrow. I could do something in a year's time. I could do something in 2 years' time. However, I feel that now there is a massive opportunity. So yeah, I want to get another project under my belt. I've been looking at something, but who knows? Yeah.
Okay. Well, now you've got the proof of concept. You've got the kind of you've overcome the hurdles along the way and the challenges, and got to the point where built the confidence, and as you say, now able to perhaps pitch it to investors, bring in external finance, and say, actually, do you know what? Look at the building. Look at what we've done. We're really proud of it, and this is proof of concept. So fantastic. So if people are watching this or reading this in YPN and listening to this, wherever that might be, on YouTube or Spotify or wherever it might be, and they're interested in kind of learning a little bit more, it sounds like other people within the community have been a real help to you. So if we've got people watching this who might want to reach out and have questions, how would a good way for them to do that be? What's the best way to kind of direct someone to you?
Either by email or mobile, which
okay. What's the best email address? Let's give that here, so just in case. So
Nigel@bodeca.com, which is BAEDECA.com.
Okay, thank you. That's brilliant. Okay, so as we come to the end of this, and I'd always like to ask this question. Looking back on the project and imagining you were talking to yourself before you began this property journey, are there any kind of lessons that you've learned or things that you could say, do you know what, don't do this or do this, or here's some of the key learning points, talking to your former self or talking to someone who's about to embark on a similar property project? Is there anything you could share that really sort of stands out?
That's a really, really good question, and something I hadn't thought about prior to this. So, I think
we don't have to handle it here. You can think about that, and we can.
No.
There's no problem. So.
I think the biggest thing for me was get an accountability buddy. Find someone who's on a similar journey to you, and you will help each other. You're not investing in each other, but you'll help each other so much, so much. Get as much out of YPN and other sources as you can. People have done it. We're not. I mean, my model is essentially built on copying exactly what Matt's was. It's, I didn't reinvent the wheel. It's exactly the same structure, format, sort of breakdown in room. The information's out there. If you're looking at a property in a certain street, look at the planning portal, contact the people responsible for those planning submissions, then you very quickly narrow down who the key players are on that street. I appreciate if you're chasing a commercial valuation, it's very difficult to get the yields. Speak to other landlords. If someone approached me and was just like, oh, I'm going to do one opposite, I'll be more than transparent, because it's in my interest that you get as high as possible valuation, because when I come and revalue, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. It's mindset. It's have the confidence in yourself. It won't all be plain sailing. It's not a get rich quick, but when you understand the benefits of having, a commercial HMO, having that structured in a company, I don't have a pension, but I've got 3 children. So having assets in a company is life-changing for us. And
Okay. Brilliant. Well,
yeah, the information's out there.
I actually think that's some of the best advice that I've heard in a long time in terms of the accountability buddy side of things, and speaking to other people in the area that have actually done what you want to do. As you rightly say, we're not reinventing the wheel. Property is rarely rocket science. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy, as we know, but and we at YPN, we couldn't do what we do, sharing these kind of stories with thousands of property investors, without people like yourself, people who are willing to step forward and say, this is it, this is my deal, warts and all, here's the mistakes I made along the way, and these are the very real challenges. So it's a huge thanks from me and the many thousands of people who will be reading this within YPN magazine and watching the interview and everything. We couldn't do it without people like yourself. And as I say, I hope you don't mind me saying, ordinary people achieving extraordinary things in property. And it's a genuine pleasure to sort of connect with you on this. And thank you for sharing the details of this project with me and our YPN community.
Thank you so much. I just have to say, it is all down to YPN. I did this Wealth Academy, and it was kind of the equivalent of a GCSE in terms of it gives you the company structure, the set out, you understand the basics, but there wasn't any practical advice to take it further. My property journey did change through YPN, through people like Matt, Julian, hearing other people's stories. It's been life-changing for us, so thank you.
Well, that's a lovely thing for me to hear, so thank you so much. Okay, take care, and we'll look forward to catching up with you and hearing about many more of your projects.
Great stuff, thank you.